Harry, thank you so much for joining us. OK, so if you could start by telling us how much the cost of transitioning to net zero is estimated to cost the economy to do this by 2050.
Well, this is hugely uncertain. As you say, it's a huge task that we have ahead of us if we were going to meet net zero. A report by the Global Warming Policy Foundation, our sister organisation, estimated that it would be in excess of £3 trillion. Now, that was by Dr. Michael Kelly, who's a senior engineer, a professor of engineering. So these are huge, huge sums. And we also have to think about just how much of a distraction it is from other activities that the government might want to do. In the past, governments have been focused on improving the living standards of the general public, of making sure their lives were better than before. Now it seems with this focus on net zero, it's distracting us from the other things that government should be doing. Even at a local government level, we're seeing councils declare climate emergencies and devote huge resources into getting emissions down. Now, there are other things that people will be concerned about. In energy, you have to think of security of supply. We've got the war in Ukraine at the moment, and we're saying that we want to divest ourselves from Russian oil and gas. So we've got to think of alternative supplies that we can rely on quickly. And we would certainly suggest that we have to consider using our shale gas resources, which are right under our feet. And you've got to think about affordability as well. The poorest people are the people who suffer most from high energy prices. So we've got to see affordability and security of supply becoming much more a priority for the government and not just decarbonisation.
What about the costs for other things? So we've talked about things like wind turbines, the amount of steel that you're going to need to use for that. You've got a potential of nuclear, but then there's lots of waste as well. Does it sound like in their policies they've considered the environmental cost as well? Because it sounds to me that we're so focused on zero carbon that we haven't looked at what the other costs might be in terms of the impact on the environment.
That's right. I mean, carbon dioxide is just one environmental lens that you can look through. But we've also got the waste issues with EVs and with wind turbines. There's huge amounts of rare earth metals, steel, concrete, huge amounts of land that these technologies take up. And that all has an environmental impact as well. So we need a much broader and more holistic approach to the environmental costs of these technologies. One thing with nuclear is actually the nuclear waste doesn't take up nearly as much space as people think. It's actually one of the safest technologies when you compare mining accidents in other energy technologies to nuclear. You actually see that nuclear comes out very safe compared to other technologies. So this is something that could provide low carbon, reliable electricity. The big problem with wind and solar, of course, being that when the wind doesn't blow, when the sun isn't shining, they're not providing energy to the grid. So we need that reliable energy. And that's not what's been thought about. It just seems that renewables are getting all the subsidies from government, all the support from government, and other technologies have just been ignored. So I think nuclear could be a big part in the future.